What's up, YouTube? It is Drew, and I want to do a follow-up to my video where I covered the Agile College by Nathan Grawe. And so the book is jam-packed with information and examples of strategies that institutions have implemented to address declining enrollment. And in that video, while I did cover those topics, I didn't go into a lot of detail because that would have been probably an hour-long video. But there were some strategies that did stand out to me, and that's what I want to cover today. And when we talked about in the book addressing admissions and trying to expand enrollment by entering new markets, I found that to be interesting for a few reasons. Now, one of them is that is a standard response. When your enrollment declines, you think to yourself, well, let's get more students and let's expand outside of what our feeder schools are or where we normally find our students. Yes, that works, but it is also a strain on your resources. So if you do have the resources to expand, absolutely go for it. But you can also get a little bit creative. And one of the schools in this book actually expanded their programs into prisons. Now, there were pros and cons to this, but it did help them expand their enrollment. And I really liked that creative thinking, and I really like the idea that you are expanding access to a population that could benefit from education and being exposed to post-secondary education. There were a few other schools who added programs like a lacrosse team or an ROTC program, which really attracted students who wouldn't have normally considered those schools. Again, I liked the creativity. I think that would be, aside from the lacrosse, maybe with ROTC, a bit of a low-cost investment. So if you're looking at adding programs like that, you really need to look at what resources you have and what you can reallocate to build those programs with the hopes that it will attract more students. Now, the chapter on student retention I found to be interesting, because in my career, my background is in student retention, and for the majority of my career, I have worked in retention. And retention seems still to be a bit of a new and abstract concept for a lot of schools and for a lot of people, although it really shouldn't be, and it kind of isn't. Where I think a lot of schools are doing a lot of retention practices, or implementing those and building those programs, but they don't really see that that is retention. And if you are one of those people, then you may know what I mean by saying that. It sounds a little confusing. But one of the things that stood out to me in that chapter was getting to know the students. And again, I'm biased because in my background, that is common knowledge to me. That is priority number one. You must get to know your students. Because if you don't know who your students are, you don't know why they are persisting, you don't know why they are leaving, and you don't know why they are struggling. And I understand it's very hard to scale getting to know your students. If you're at a small school where your population is probably 2,000 students, it would be easy to get to know them. But if you're at a school where enrollment is over 50,000, it's much more difficult, but it's not impossible. And that's where I'm always going to advocate for retention initiatives and getting to know the students no matter the size of the school. Because getting to know the students allows you to uncover reasons why students are struggling or leaving that you never thought about before. You're going to understand why students are successful or why students were attracted to your school in the first place. And you're going to understand why students may be switching majors. Is it the content? Is it the faculty? Is it because the classrooms are old? Is it because of the technology that you offer that it's outdated? Is it because they don't feel supported by the staff? Getting to know the students is how you're going to find that information. So there was another thing too, in addition to the retention, which was identifying at-risk students. And it's kind of what I already touched on, but I think that is if you are not doing anything with retention, that's the first key to kind of growing a retention approach. Identify your at-risk students. So typically when we talk about at-risk students, we're looking at the ones who are struggling academically. We're looking at the ones who are not engaged in the classroom, the ones who are failing their tests, and that is a prime population to really be proactive and reactive in trying to assist them and guide them and provide resources for them. So if you are a school, or if you are at a school that is looking at trying to revitalize the approach to retaining your students, identifying your at-risk students is the perfect place to start. So there was one more chapter that talked about the curricular changes, and I found that to be interesting as well. And there were schools who were really exploring changing the modality and the schedule of their course offerings. And so with the modality, you had a lot of classes going online or a lot of programs going online. And that is a whole nother discussion in terms of accessibility and the pros and cons of that. But what I found interesting was there were schools who were switching from a 16-week or a full semester course format to an 8-week format. And I know there is research that supports 8-week is more successful, but anecdotally what I've witnessed, and it's not always the case. So I'm going to take a step back here. Again, what I've observed, or what I should say, is if you're exploring switching your format from 16 to 8-week courses, you need to consider your population. So if you have a highly prepared academically and a highly motivated student population, the switch to 8 weeks might work seamlessly. But if you are looking at a student population that is historically underprepared or struggling to adapt to a college environment, switching to 8 weeks may not be the best case. And you're also looking at gaps within an academic year that can cause some struggles with retaining the knowledge from those courses. So for example, if you have a student who's coming into their first year and they are taking a math course in the first half of their spring semester, they are no longer taking any sort of math course in the second half of the spring semester. They're taking no courses in the summer, and then they're jumping into a higher level math course in the fall semester. So you're looking at summer and the second half of your spring semester where they were not taking any math or exposed to any math whatsoever. So some students may be okay with that, but students who are really struggling to advance through those math courses is now suddenly forgetting everything they learned in the first half of the spring semester. And that is where the 8-week courses can be problematic. However, you can address this through strategic offering of those critical courses. And one final thought I had too is the schools that were really looking at connecting the majors in the academic curriculum to internships, to apprenticeships, to careers. I found that to be awesome, really. Because we are in an age where students are questioning whether or not they should go to college. And so many students that I've worked with, even in their first year, have always said to me, why do I have to take these courses if they have nothing to do with my degree? Yes, there is some value in that, and I can explain that value to those students, but they don't really care. They want to get to a career, they want to get their degree, and they want to move on with their life. So what I loved is the schools who are really saying, this is your major, and we are going to connect you to people who work in that field, and we're going to connect you to opportunities to really start applying what you're learning before you even graduate. And we want to give you those skill sets and the perspectives and the knowledge of how this field operates and functions so that when you graduate, you are ready to be productive and a successful employee. I loved it. I think every school really needs to adapt that. And again, I know it's not easy, especially when resources are limited and we can only do so much in terms of a career services office or really trying to connect to industry leaders as faculty and as administrators. But I think it's a great opportunity to capitalize on really allowing our students to find purpose and meaning in their college experience early on. So I thought these were very good examples. These stood out to me the most, and there are so many more others. And that's why I recommend this book. So make sure you go check it out. And don't forget to hit subscribe if you want to see more reviews like this. And I will catch you in the next one.